At the age of 84, while many of his contemporaries have long since stepped away from the spotlight, Ringo Starr continues to amaze the world with his remarkable energy on stage during his 2026 tour. Yet what shocked the public even more than his vitality was a stunning event in April 2026. After more than 60 years of silence, Ringo Starr finally broke down the carefully guarded wall of secrecy to reveal his true role within the Beatles. His confession felt like the final missing piece of a puzzle, unlocking the secret of how the greatest musical empire of all time managed to withstand the overwhelming pressures of fame. The life of Richard Starkey, later known to the world as Ringo Starr, did not begin with applause or stage lights, but with the broken sounds of hospital wards and the suffocating silence of the Dingle district in Liverpool during the 1940s. Ringo's childhood was a genuine fight for survival. At just 3 years old, he suffered his first devastating blow when his father left the family, leaving the little boy in the care of his hard-working mother. But that was only the beginning of a series of hardships. At the age of 6, a severe stomach illness led to emergency surgery, followed by a cruel twist of fate, a prolonged coma. Ringo spent 12 long months confined within the cold walls of a hospital. When he finally regained consciousness, the world around him had changed, and much of the basic education he had received at school had slipped away after such a lengthy interruption. Tragedy was not yet finished with him. At 13, just as he began to hope for a normal life, Ringo was struck down again by tuberculosis. Instead of spending the best years of his youth playing in the streets of Liverpool, he found himself confined to a sanatorium for 2 years. Surrounded by the heavy scent of disinfectant and overwhelming loneliness, death must have seemed close on many occasions, yet Ringo's heart continued to beat with extraordinary determination. Then salvation arrived from the most unexpected place. At the sanatorium, amid his physical suffering, the nurses encouraged patients to join the hospital band as a way of restoring their will to live. It was a moment of quiet magic. Without a proper drum kit available, the frail young Ringo picked up a pair of drumsticks and began tapping on the bedside cabinet. Those rough, unpolished sounds echoing through the small hospital room became the very first heartbeat of a future legend. In that moment, his fear of death faded into the background, replaced by an overwhelming passion. Ringo had discovered his escape, not by running away from illness, but by immersing himself in music. It was from that fragile line between life and death that a legend struck his very first beat, on a journey that would eventually transform the history of popular music across the world. From tapping on bedside cabinets in a sanatorium, Richard Starkey's passion for rhythm carried him beyond the hospital walls and into Liverpool's thriving music scene. In 1955, he officially formed his first group, Eddie Clayton Skiffle. Those were his first tentative steps, where he became familiar with stage lights and the excitement of performing in the bustling port city. An even greater turning point came in 1959, when he joined Rory Storm and the Hurricanes, one of Liverpool's most respected and influential bands at the time. It was there that the name Ringo Starr was born, almost as though it had been destined from the beginning. The name Ringo came from his habit of wearing numerous silver rings, a touch of glamour amid an otherwise modest life. The surname Starr was chosen because of his powerful drum solos, the moments when he enjoyed his own star time on stage, capturing the attention of everyone watching the drummer behind the kit. Yet his true destiny was waiting for him on the 14th of August, 1962. At that moment, the Beatles, the rising stars of Liverpool, were standing on the threshold of worldwide success. John Lennon, with characteristic determination, made the invitation that would change history by asking Ringo to replace Pete Best. The day Ringo joined the Beatles was far more than a simple change in personnel. It was the moment when the final piece of the puzzle fell perfectly into place. Richard Starkey, carrying the scars of illness throughout his childhood, stepped onto a remarkable journey where he no longer played the drums to escape pain, but to shape the heartbeat of a musical revolution that would influence an entire generation. Joining the Beatles was nothing like the fairy tale many people imagined. On the contrary, it was a beginning filled with doubt and disappointment. From the moment he joined, Ringo found himself facing the anger of Pete Best's loyal supporters. At the Cavern Club, the legendary venue where the Beatles began their career, he endured boos, angry banners, and even protests outside the entrance. For someone who had already carried deep insecurities from a childhood marked by illness and poverty, being rejected by thousands of people was a devastating blow to his confidence. The challenges did not end there. Even in the recording studio, his position remained uncertain. George Martin, the brilliant yet demanding producer known for his exceptionally high standards, initially questioned Ringo's abilities. During the first recording session for the hit single Love Me Do, Martin chose not to entrust him with the drum kit and instead hired a professional session drummer. Ringo was relegated to playing the tambourine instead. It was a painful humiliation that he quietly endured while proving his worth by learning every rhythm and every nuance of the band's music. Ringo never tried to become the fastest or most technically flashy drummer. Instead, he turned what seemed like a disadvantage into his greatest strength. Naturally left-handed, but required to play a drum kit designed for a right-handed player, he unintentionally developed an entirely distinctive style known as cross-handed playing. While many drummers followed conventional patterns, Ringo created unique rhythms through unexpected fills and smooth yet remarkably solid transitions. Listen carefully to Come Together or Something, and you will hear that his drums do far more than keep the beat. They become a melody in their own right. He did not play the drums the way people expected. He played them the way each song demanded. It was that unique approach that transformed Ringo into the quiet but immensely powerful heartbeat of the band. While everyone else was occupied with dazzling guitar solos or increasingly sophisticated lyrics, Ringo became the anchor that kept the Beatles' creative ship steady. During the very years when his talent was most questioned, he quietly redefined the role of the modern drummer, not as the person who played the fastest, but as the one who made every song complete. For more than 60 years, the world has wondered how four extraordinary personalities, John Lennon, Paul McCartney, George Harrison, and Ringo Starr, managed to exist together without tearing apart the greatest band in music history. Countless books have analyzed their musical genius, yet in April 2026, Ringo Starr finally offered an explanation that was astonishingly simple and profoundly moving. In a deeply emotional interview reflecting on the glorious yet conflict-filled years of the Fab Four, Ringo admitted for the very first time a truth he had kept buried for more than half a century. "I was never the best drummer, and I never tried to become the greatest technician. But I was the only one patient enough to put up with all of them without losing my mind. I wasn't the luckiest member of the band. I was the most patient." It was not false modesty. It was a confession marked by scars. Ringo was not talking about music. He was talking about humanity. Amid fierce arguments over artistic direction, personal rivalries, and the enormous pressure that came with the Beatles' worldwide fame, Ringo became the buffer between them. He was the one who quietly listened to harsh words, the one who stepped in to calm tensions when they reached breaking point, and the one who accepted the role of standing in the background so that his bandmates could shine. He described himself as the band's silent glue. While the world saw four stars standing together on stage, few realized that it was Ringo who carried the burden of keeping the bond between them from falling apart. He chose not to fight for attention or recognition. Instead, he chose to listen to the sound of his own drums and to the fractures forming between the people beside him. Ringo's confession at the age of 84 completely changed the way we view the Beatles. We once believed they were simply four extraordinary musical geniuses, but it turns out their enduring legacy was built upon the quiet sacrifices of a man with remarkable compassion. Ringo did not merely keep time in the music, he kept the rhythm of their brotherhood alive. He was the only one calm enough to recognize the cracks within the band and patient enough to try to piece them back together, even when those broken pieces left wounds of their own. That was the real secret. The Beatles did not fall apart because Ringo ran out of patience, but because even the most patient person in the world eventually had to let those powerful personalities follow their own paths. When the Beatles came to an end, The band's anchor no longer had anything to hold on to. While the other members continued building their own musical empires, for Ringo, John Lennon's death in 1980 felt like a death sentence for his inner world. After the tragic loss of his friend and bandmate, Ringo Starr fell into a deep despair. The silence of the recording studio was no longer peaceful. It became the sound of overwhelming loneliness. To fill that emptiness, he turned to the most destructive companion of all, alcohol. It was a terrifying chapter of his life that he would later openly describe as the lost years. Ringo recalled days when he drank as many as 16 bottles of alcohol, becoming little more than a ghost wandering through his own luxurious home. Alcohol did not merely rob him of clarity, it gradually eroded his character. During endless periods of intoxication, the man once known for his patience and kindness sometimes lost control and became violent towards his wife. It was the lowest point of his life, where the glory of a legend was completely overshadowed by the darkness of addiction. His salvation arrived in 1988, not beneath stage lights, but through a decision that would save his life. Realizing that he was being consumed by the abyss and dragging those he loved down with him, Ringo and his wife made the life-changing decision to enter a rehabilitation center. It was the toughest battle he had ever faced, far more difficult than any drum solo he had ever performed. He gave up alcohol completely, adopted a vegetarian lifestyle, embraced meditation, and reconnected with himself. Ringo had to learn how to pick up the drumsticks again with a completely clear mind. In 1989, Ringo returned, not to reclaim the title of the biggest star, but to fulfill a different dream, the All-Star Band. Guided by the philosophy that everyone is a star, he invited close friends and gifted musicians to share the stage with him. It represented a profound shift in his outlook on life. By the time he reached his 50s, he realized he no longer needed to compete or prove anything. He found genuine happiness in being part of something greater than himself, sharing the spotlight with others. That generous spirit transformed Ringo into an exceptional bandleader who helped other artists shine. John Lennon's death almost destroyed Ringo, but the resilience he discovered while rebuilding his life shaped the Ringo Starr we know today. A man who truly understands the value of sobriety, compassion, and human connection. He did not simply survive fame. He rebuilt his life from the broken pieces, turning them into the solid foundations of a lasting human legacy. At the age of 85, Ringo Starr continues to write one of the brightest chapters of his remarkable musical career, proving that true legends never accept retirement. Since 2008, he has remained devoted to his Peace and Love campaign, treating it not merely as a slogan, but as the guiding philosophy behind both his artistic work and his relationship with the public. That philosophy has become the heart of every project he undertakes, spreading positivity to millions of fans around the world. The period from 2021 to the present has marked another impressive chapter in his creative journey. In 2023, the music world celebrated Ringo's significant contribution to completing the Beatles' final song, Now and Then, bringing an emotional and fitting conclusion to the band's extraordinary legacy. His creativity continued to flourish in 2025 with the release of the country album Look Up, which received widespread critical acclaim and reached the top 10 of the Billboard charts. Not stopping there, in May 2026, he introduced the album Long, Long Road, featuring the duet Home to Us with Paul McCartney, a collaboration that attracted enormous attention and reaffirmed the enduring bond between the two legendary musicians more than half a century after they first shared a stage. When asked about his future plans, Ringo Starr stated with absolute conviction that he would put down his drumsticks only when his heart finally stopped beating. For him, music is not a job that ends with retirement. It is his breath, his purpose, and his way of life. At the age of 85, Ringo Starr continues to play with remarkable passion, inspiring generations of musicians and audiences through his unwavering dedication and his enduring love of music. Ringo Starr's story stands as the strongest possible reminder that as long as we continue to love life and our hearts keep beating, our journey is never truly over. Join us in celebrating Ringo Starr's extraordinary musical legacy by sharing your favourite song from his remarkable career in the comments below, or post your thoughts about his message of peace and love using the hashtags Ringo Starr and Peace and Love to help spread a little more positivity today.